was that?
Yes, at previous lecture was we were your PhD students, as I understand.
Yes,
do we
correct.
need to wait them today or not?
Well, the thing is that we had a full day seminar today, so I kind of
Okay.
think that they beat it today by this time. So I don't think that they will join because we started early morning. We just closed it, and I'm sure they are beat it. So I think that they can. They don't have enough energy to join this. But anyway, so if they can watch this recording later, that would be really outstanding.
Yes, yes.
Okay, but just put the recording on, and then we will go.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon. And before we get started, I need to say that I was very impressed about your discussion with me last week. Because usually whenever I'm teaching, people never ever make any comments or questions. So it's like always just me. And the last week there was a good discussion, and it was a truly sharing opinions. And it's important in a subject matter like steps for a good quality publication, because this is not the concrete science, but this is more like opinions. And I have my opinions and you have yours. And I think it is important to look how is it we can find a balance between the different opinions. And that's why the communication is important. What follows? So what will happen today is that I will close the discussion about the steps for a good quality publication, high quality publication. And then this will take a little hard to say, but this will take maybe 45 minutes, maybe a bit longer than that. And once we're done with the publication business, then we can start something completely different. And something completely different will be related to computational dynamics, because my field, my true field is computational dynamics, and there are a few things that I would like to share with you in that particular topic. So it's very different than this one, because this one is more like matter of opinion. Computational dynamics is not the matter of opinion, but it's like hard facts and how is the physics behind and how is the mathematics. And that's what I would like to do next. So we'll see how much you like about that, but I hope that you can get an idea what is the thing we're doing in LUT University. And it's quite beautiful area because it's very systematic. It's simple and it follows a certain procedure. And hopefully, I hope you will learn at the end of the day that computational dynamics is your friend. It's not your enemy, but your friend. And how is your friend? That's simply because there are just a few things we need to figure it out. And actually, there's one thing only that we need to figure it out. That is related to how is that we can describe the kinematics of one particle. And once we make an agreement about that, everything else is very mechanical. It's just following the certain rules and certain procedures, and then you end up to have an equation of motion more or less automatic. So that's what I would like you to hopefully learning that the computational dynamics is your friend, not your enemy. Okay, but let's go to first and let's wrap up this topic of steps for good publication, good high quality publication. This is where we started last week. So I started with an introduction, which is kind of interesting because it's important you to know why this publication business is important. And I hope that you learn that this is a nature of academic business. Sometimes people are saying that, okay, the nature of the academic business is like teaching. Actually, it's not. Teaching is a part of it. But the big deal have to be related to science. And if there is quite a bit of effort in science that need to be materialized to publication. Otherwise, something is a little bit wrong. And sometimes the people are saying, I cannot publish because it's a confidential matters that I'm doing. Okay, it could be confidential matters, but my experience is that if something is confidential in university, that is typically related to something else than really the confidentiality. It may be related to the fact that, sorry about the rough example, but it could be related to the fact that the quality-wise is just a so low quality work that is not worth the publish. And that's why sometimes people are saying, okay, this is confidential work that I'm doing. I cannot show this to anyone else. And it's not because it's confidential, but it's something that interesting stuff. Okay, but let's close this case, and we put last time we could put quite a bit of effort to this introduction, and we looked like a little bit about how is that you can prepare the manuscript. We will continue from preparation of a manuscript, and then the main focus of today's presentation is how is a review process. That is a nasty process, which is pinpointing the weaknesses of the paper. And this is why, this is a very rough game. I see many cases that people are unable to deal with the hard reviews, and you just have to learn to deal with that. Because no matter what you do, you always will get certain number of rough reviews, and you should learn it, but you shouldn't take it personally. How is that possible? That I will try to explain to you today. But let's first summarize a little bit what we discussed last week. Okay, so we discussed that it makes sense to publish in scientific journals, and there's a million different kind of journals. And why it makes sense to publish in a journal? And the first obvious answer for that is that this is simply the nature of academic business. The kind of like the human value. This is an extreme statement, but human value in academics is measured by H-index. Of course, there are many others, but H-index is something that people would like to know. Okay, what is your H-index? It's like a little bit like in military. What is your rank? Are you an officer or are you not an officer? And if you're an officer, what is your rank? Are you a lieutenant, captain, or what is your rank? The same stuff in academic, and it's about the H-index. That's what tells a little bit about your rank. And we learned last week that the H-index is related to your field of expertise. So it's not fair to compare physics, engineering, or mechanical engineering against the medical field. They have their own different rankings. Regardless of that, that is something that is a nature of the business. And I can see that I got that information that my network quality is not very good. Are you still there? Roman, can you still hear me? Or
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I got the information in my screen that problem in my internet connection, so the low quality connection. Okay.
No, here is everything okay.
Okay, maybe it was just something that already disappeared. Okay, so the nature of the business, that is reason. So that's already is a good reason enough. So if you want to stay in academia, you need to publish. And then this is what we get back to today. So review process, peer reviews, review statement can be considered as a learning process. It's just painful learning, I can tell you that. It's painful learning because reviews are always, like I mentioned, they are emphasizing the negative aspects. And they never ever say anything highly about your work. They don't say, okay, what an interesting work, but they say, no, this is not interesting work. This is, there's a lot of different problems. Even if there is a certain merits, they usually don't put much of an effort to merits, but more like, okay, what is wrong in the paper? And because they're pinpointing so much about what is wrong, that's what it is a little bit of a rough way to learn. But the learning process, and that is the way that you can handle it without going crazy. So then we also discuss a little bit about how they can provide state-of-the-art information. Yeah, they may do it. And then they allow you to challenge yourself. And if you wanted to really challenge yourself, go ahead and submit your work to Nature or Science, which, by the way, is possible even in the field of mechanical engineering. I have my colleague in Delft University that published a paper about bicycle dynamics, and I think that it was in Science, not Nature, but Science. So it's possible too. One more slide about the summary of last week's lecture. Oh, two more slides about that. So these are the steps that I'm hoping you to follow. So to preparing the manuscript, that's what we're going to look a little bit more closer today. This one here, We discuss a little bit about how to select the journal. And then today, another stuff will be related to, once you get the review statement, how is it you should revise and prepare the rebuttal letter? What kind of attitude you should have? Because you may get the chances to get your paper accepted, but then for some reason your revised manuscript, in particular your rebuttal letter, is no good, and that's it. The door will close, and then you cannot publish your work in that particular journal anymore. Okay, so those are the steps, and we look already a little bit about how to make a good quality manuscript, and the instructions are as follows. So make sure that the storyline is fluent. We discussed about the plot, skeleton of your work. That is extremely important. And my advice is to build the plot, the storylines. That's the way that each one of the paragraph you want to mention in your work is a one bullet. So you say, okay, the first thing is my introduction. The first paragraph in my introduction is providing the big picture to the reader. Second paragraph is showing what is going on in the literature in this particular field. Second paragraph is explaining more details, what is the literature in the field that I wanted to study. Then the second one, then the third one. Is it third one? No, I think it is third one. Fourth one already is about how is that this existing literature is ignoring something. So there is a gap of knowledge. And then you're explaining how you can fill the gap and so on and so forth. Each one of the paragraphs you wanted to mention, make as a one bullet. And once you have the bullets, then you can fit those bullets to one page, not 2 pages max. And once you look at the storyline, you can immediately see if things are in balance. So if there's something that you're mentioning or emphasizing too much, if there's something that you are simply ignoring. And that's important because once the paper is put in writing, it becomes to be hard to see the bigger picture. The plot, the storyline is no longer that easy to recognize. So that's why get started from the storyline, get started from the plot, and then put things in writing. I know that it sounds ridiculous that I'm emphasizing the quality of figures, reference lists, tables, equations, and so on and so forth, but they are important. They are like a dress code in a formal body. And if you go to formal body by wearing a sport jacket or something that is not according to the dress code, people are not going to like you. The same story here. And I know many reviewers that they start doing the review from the reference list. So the first thing that they look, how is the reference list? And it's so many times that you can see quite a bit of inconsistencies in the reference list. You see that, the references are written in inconsistent matters. So sometimes, the writing style is like, say, they always use in capital letters, sometimes they don't. And you start to see inconsistencies. And you become like, So the reference list is not written consistently. So there must be something wrong in that particular paper. And then the attitude you have when you start to look at the paper is extremely negative, not positive, but negative. And you know what that's going to lead to. So it's going to lead to very critical review statement or even rejection. So it could be the simple matters like that. Quality figures, same thing. I could show you some examples, but I was hoping that you could submit me your manuscript and I could tell you how it reads. How is my first impression in that? Equations too. So you need to make sure that your notation in equations are exactly same that in a text. That's a typical mistake. Like say that you have a scalar quantities in your equation, but then in italic font, but in the text they are not in italic. So these minor inconsistencies for the people that have been in a field long enough, they can pinpoint these inconsistencies in a fraction of the second. And then once they see these inconsistencies, then they are like, okay, this person came to formal body with incorrect dress. So there must be something. Then let me ask you something. Are you familiar with the LaTeX type of text editing work like Overleaf or something similar than Overleaf? Is this the way usually how you put your manuscript together, or are you using Word or something else? I don't. Well, the thing is that
I may say it from my side. I use it depends from templates that prefer the journals. So sometimes journal ask to make it in doc. Sometimes it ask it make in LaTeX. Sometimes they ask to send them the paper version with some graphs that you are trying to figure out the Greek alphabet or Rome alphabet or so on, so on. So it depends from journal usually. In my case,
it depends on the journal. But as a rule of thumb, it may be a good idea to familiarize yourself to LaTeX kind of editing, Overleaf or whatever tool you want to use. It usually pays off because that is the easiest way to make sure that your work is with the no inconsistencies, because it helps to write everything with the exactly same style. In Word, yeah, you can make it happen in Word too, but it needs more effort, and you need to familiarize yourself to how to use a word in a proper way. It's possible. And I'm a little bit towards using these LaTeX type of editing tools because they kind of forces you to be consistent, and that's a very good thing. And I don't know if you know this, but this LaTeX editing, at least some years back, was considered as something like, if there is a paper submitted in LaTeX format, it was always considered as a high quality work for the no reason. But I think this is because, the people that are very much into the LaTeX, it's a little bit like a religion. So they want to see others using the same tool. And if they see that others are using the same tool, they are becoming very happy and having very positive attitude towards the manuscript. Of course, the content, what matters, but the first impression too matters. And the dress code too, that matters as well. Because if there is a high quality work, it should be reflected to how the equations and tables and references and figures are put together. Okay, all right, so I'm sorry that be this lengthy today. So generally one journal paper is a one person year, and then I will just skip this and we'll go. Then this, I have few advices to you, how is that you can build your bigger storyline. So of course, each one of the sections, you should have these bullets, like under the instructions, you should have a bullet, like what are the sections you wanted to mention? And then you say, okay, here, first the big picture. First big picture, and then something else, literature review, and so on and so on. This is the kind of the way that you put together. And now the whole story should go such the way that there have to be always this introduction section. And make sure that there is an introduction section. In some cases, I see that the manuscript jump directly to business, meaning that there are equations in introduction, which is kind of okay, but generally speaking, you should save equations and more deep material to this section, which is the methods and material. You should try to not to use equations already in the introduction, but because the introduction is introducing the subject matter to the readers. So introduction, methods, results. It should be results and then discussion. This is a very, very often used IMRET structure, which I'm forcing my master level students to use it, my doctoral level students to use it. It's kind of like the guideline, whatever we're publishing. And what is the important thing about this guideline is that, the reader, I think I mentioned this to you last week as well. So reader can take a look at the introduction, see what is an objective of the work, what is a reason to do this work. And then once that is all clear, then reader can jump to conclusion and check whether or not this reason was fulfilled, whether or not the objectives were fulfilled. And it's amazing that there may be clear objectives in the introduction, but once you jump to conclusion conclusions are discussing about completely different story than objectives. And this is a simple check that you should do no matter what you're publishing. This is also valid for your thesis work. In your thesis, make sure that there is a clear statement, what is an objective of the work, and then double check that the conclusions are dealing with an objective, because easily they don't. And that's very natural, because you start the writing here, and then you go all through all these chapters, and once you're in a conclusion, your mind is completely with something else, and your work is a little bit curved to the left and right, and it's not going straight, and then you end up to be explaining something that is not even an objective of your work. Double check that. Then these different structures, there are different ways to play with the structure. So even if I say that, please follow Imre's structure, of course you have a certain level of freedom, and you can use your own common sense to see what exactly is the style you wanted to follow. Okay, so these are the little hints like how the introduction section should be. And like I explained already, so the introduction, like big picture is needed, like why it makes sense that people are investing this amount of time and effort to this particular subject field. Make sure that the reader understands that. And if you're making your master level thesis, my advice to you is that make sure that there's a picture about the subject matter. Journal papers, no pictures, because it needs to be more kind of like more professional. It needs to be a bit more focused on the audience that are familiar with the subject matter, so the picture is not needed. But master level thesis, sure, it helps. It's a good idea. And then the literature review, what is not studied, and then the objective. This is the kind of mandatory items in your introduction. Mandatory items. Make sure I can, whatever piece of work you're doing, there's always an objective, always a literature review, not necessarily a thorough one, but at least what are the most significant papers, what is not yet studied, and what is that, how you're going to build, or how you're going to cover that missing material. Methods is a little bit like, what is a toolbox you're using? What is a method that could be applied to your particular field of application, or could be applied to something that is close to your particular field of applications? So this is more like general toolbox. And then you're saying, okay, using this toolbox, somebody else can come and use it and solve it with a problem that is not exactly the one that I'm solving here, but having some similarities with the problems that I'm solving. If you're really good, it's also a very good idea to explain what is an assumptions behind the toolbox you're using, and where the toolbox is capable of, what the toolbox is capable to do, and what is its limitations. Because there is no toolbox that fits to all kind of problems. Tools are always to certain kind of way to work. What is a certain kind of way? Make sure that the reader understands that too. Then just important that you are, again, logical, systematic, and try to explain in a way that it's easy to follow. Usually the kind of the excuse for the authors when the reader is not able to understand is that they say, okay, there's a lack of knowledge in the reader. That's not a good point, because if you think that there's a problem in the reader and there's a problem in the reviewer, you should think twice. Because usually these reviewers are really good experts in the field, and if they don't understand something, it must be two reasons. Either the presentation style is incorrect and it's chaotic, it's just not possible to understand it, or it's technically incorrect. So those are the two cases. And this is the way that the reviewers are looking at it. They don't have a good will to understand, but they look, okay, this is chaotic, I don't understand. So I don't understand. So it's not me, but it's this paper that is wrong. That's the attitude that they use. Okay, so, I know a field is quite often that there is a mathematical models, mathematical procedures that you're using, and it's important that you explain that in a thorough way, because idea, of course, is that somebody else can come, use the toolbox you're using, and then reproducing the results you obtain. And this is kind of like a fundamentals in science, which holds in computational engineering and mechanical engineering too. So make sure that the results are reproducible, meaning that you're explaining what exactly you're doing. And then in the application section, which is typically a next section, you're saying what are the parameters you're using, how you make this whole thing to happen. I know that is sometimes a little hard to do so, but still try to keep this in your mind. If there is any experimental results, again, try to keep in mind that there's somebody else can come and reproduce it. So give a chance. Try to do it in such the way that there is this possibility to reproduce these results. Okay. Then some more details about how the tech is supposed to be. But do we have any comments so far? Do we have anything to discuss so far? Because what I will jump next is that I'm going to give you really, really detailed instructions. But anything you want to share with me this time? Maybe I made a mistake because I said that it was such a pleasant that you communicated with me last, today is Thursday, last Thursday. And now you don't communicate with me anymore. So you're still there?
I'm still here. Students, are you here?
Yes, Professor. May I ask one question about previous slide? I want to ask, about more previous, about preparing figures and some this stuff. I want to ask about what rules is needed to follow when one started to preparation. Maybe exist some standards, or if there exist, its standards depends on some journal when what you chose.
Oh, you mean the keywords?
Keywords and literature list.
Okay.
And some maybe some, like in Russia, exist GOSTs. It's standards to prepare this literature list. Maybe for some journals exist standards like that.
Extremely good question. So let me get started from these references. This is, to explain this, we need to go all the way back here to look how is the nature of academic business. Okay, nature of academic business is trying to collect these citations. And that is valid for individuals, it is valid for universities, and it's valid for journals. And if journal gets a lot of citations, its impact factor goes high. And if the impact factor goes high, then it's considered to be high quality journal. Okay, so that's how it goes. And the same thing for individuals. Now, I know that some of the journals, they have the policy that if you submit the manuscript to that particular journal, they wanted to see their publication in a reference list. And they even mentioned in their website that make sure that you're citing at least, say, 3 to 4 papers that are published in this journal within the recent 1 to 2 years or something like that. You can easily see some of these kind of recommendations. And is not often just a recommendation, but is something that they check when you submit that journal. When you're submitting the manuscript to journal, they check, okay, so there is no references to my journal. Let me reject this automatically. And there are kind of 2 reasons for that. First reason is this nature of the business. They want to increase the impact factor. But then there is another reason too, and it's that if you have no knowledge what is the subject field of the journal? Why is that you submitting your work to that particular journal? So those are the reasons which forces you often to cite to journal that you are submitting your work. That's my experience. But in some journals, like in the journal that I'm editor-in-chief, Multibody System Dynamics, if you don't cite the Multibody System Dynamics, fine, it's completely fine. But we still would like to see that you have something in that subject field. So if you're citing something that has nothing to do with the field of multibody system dynamics, that makes me feel suspicious. Okay, then the keywords. Keywords actually should reflect the content of your work, not about the content of the journal. So I think it is important to try to select the keywords such the way that they will reflect what is that you are about to publish. And how to select those? Well, I have any other advices than the one that please try to select those keywords is based on the work you're doing. And also, well, I do have actually advice to that, because make sure that these keywords are ones that are commonly used in the community. So if you are saying that, okay, I want to submit something in the field of multibody system dynamics, and then your keywords are something that makes no sense, so they are like completely off from the field, then it kind of reflects that your background is not strong enough. So did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Sorry about the lengthy answer.
No, it's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's continue then. So then, okay, here I have typical problems that often exists. The first one is that people that are not the native speakers. I'm not the native speaker, and I guess that you are not either. So the people have this tendency to make very long sentences, and they wanted to make it very, very complex. So they hardly understand by themselves what this sentence means. That's not a good idea. Use simple sentences, use simple language. Don't try to make too sophisticated structures, because usually that's just simply incorrect, and they are making it really, really hard to follow the paper. So make sure that your sentences are 2 lines max. This is just to give you a number, because every now and then you can see that there is a sentence that is taking the full paragraph, like that much text. Nice, for sure, is not understandable. Same goes with the paragraphs. Sometimes the paragraphs itself are very complicated, and they are carrying the several stories within the one paragraph. Remember, the storyline can be built such the way that each one of the paragraph is a one bullet. Make sure that the paragraph is eventually following the bullet and is following the content, what that you wanted to say. Don't put 2 things in one paragraph. So, then this extra, okay, I will get back to this. So a lot of scientists writing does not clearly explain the relevant facts. So this is something that is very, very difficult, because in order to be able to kind of read or able to do this in a high quality way, you should be very much familiar with the subject matter. So usually if you're not really an expert of the subject matter, then you started to put the stuff like trying to hide your lack of knowledge. And usually you hide your lack of knowledge by not explaining what really is going on here. And the expert can easily figure that out and try to avoid that. And then how they can hide this lack of knowledge? Usually the extra unclear words that are very, very often used. Let me give you a few examples. So extra unclear words. What are these extra unclear words? Don't use words like very, quite, relative. Don't use this kind of words, because very, very large means large. Very big means big. Quite large is very unclear statement. He's saying nothing, except that it's kind of fading the facts off. So trying to avoid that. Don't say in order to, but say these are the simple tricks. But this is kind of the rules that you should check just prior to submission. How many times you mention very, how many times you mention quiet, how many times you mention relative. Relative, I mean that it could be like relative coordinates, and that's okay. By saying that something is relatively large. What is that? I don't want to know that, but I want to know what the percentage was. Give me the number, what it means. And this is the kind of the way that make it in a professional level. And my advice here is that use Language Consult. That simple way to get rid of these typical typing mistakes and grammar mistakes that easily visible and are with the manuscript. Easy way to avoid it is to use a Language Consult. And again, the one more thing that is important is that objectivity. Sometimes the manuscript are selling too much. They try to sell the positive aspects about the work you did, which is very natural. It's humankind, very humankind. But you should be as objective as possible because you're not the salesman. You are a scientist that is looking things in an objective manner. Okay, very quiet, not a lot to use. Okay, so let's move on.
Professor Mikola, may I ask you
yes, of course.
one question? So sorry for disturbing you. May I ask you a question about the language consultant? You mean real people who are professional in English, or something software, or what? Using for checking the papers and manuscripts?
Of course, it's usually a good idea if you can use a native speaker to check your paper. The thing is that there's many different levels of editing. And then the lowest level, they just make it sure that there's there's no grammar mistake. They don't fix the storyline. They don't fix the paper to be fluent, but they make sure that it's correct English. Correct English meaning that it's still not easily readable. Then there's a better level of language consultants that are making the story to be fluent, and they pinpointing the inconsistencies. If you can find somebody that is capable to do that higher level editing, that will be really, really outstanding. Usually, problem is that those are not the free services, but you have to pay something about that. And I don't know how is your university reacting if you put in your manuscript to language consultant, and then there's a bill that is coming from that service. Are they willing to cover the expenses or not really willing to do it?
No, I suppose it's not our case.
Yeah, still is highly recommended. This is a very difficult thing because the poor language could be the reason for rejection too. The content-wise, it could be outstanding work and it could carry a lot of new scientific information, but it is expressed in a way that the quality-wise is not good. And the easiest way to fix that is by using a language consultant. So maybe, Roman, once you be a rector of your university, try to change the rules such that the papers are checked by language consultants. All the important papers we're doing are checked by, so we have 2 native speakers in my team. So they're checked by these 2 native speakers because my English is not good enough. I still make a mistake. I mean that I cannot write in the same level that these native speakers can. That's how it is.
Okay, I understand. I'm asking because maybe you made some advice about software that you use for this, but of course, native speaker is the best software.
Yeah, we have a software in a university too, but it's just making sure that it is correct.
So it's only grammar. Only
grammar, but that's still it's gonna be not easy to read the paper that is where the grammar is correct, but the story is not fluent.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So thank you for comments.
Okay, so then final comments. What is important is to try to avoid uncompromised statements. This is very easy because every now and then you can see the paper which says like all the cars are something. They say all the cars are something, and this is a very, very heavy statement because it's so easy to find a special case when not all the cars are something, but they are something picked out of the description that was provided. The easiest way to avoid that is not to use an uncompromised statement. I will give you a simple example. My first doctoral student made outstanding dissertation work, doctor thesis, and it was just beautiful. I was even crying when I was reading. It was so beautiful piece of work. And then there was this public defense, and in the public defense, the reviewer opponent were able to pinpoint the one statement, and in that one statement, he said that this method can be used only for this kind of applications. So that there is a problem because it was a very heavy statement by saying that only for this kind of application. And of course, this opponent was very experienced and he knew the cases that being used in other cases than the one that was said in the thesis. And he made a big story about that and said, okay, obviously you are very experienced because you are not familiar with this method. You don't know that it's being used outside of from the statement you made. So it would be so easy to fix it and say that is often saying that it's often used in cases like that, or can be used in the cases like that. Those are the kind of the ways that you avoid the uncompromised statement. So make sure that you are avoiding the uncompromised statement. Then another kind of minor thing, but you can see this often too, is that there's an unclear use of references. Sometimes you can see the statements like saying that, okay, this is a work that is being studied by a number of papers, and then there is a reference list like this, 1 to 23. Okay, what is telling to me? It's telling that these people have no idea what is in these references 1 to 23. They really don't know the content matter. They just pick it in a list and they say, for sure, I'm pretty sure that there is something related to this statement in these papers, which is 23 papers in total. Not a good idea. Explain what is that you can find in these papers, and don't use this kind of a statement which says 1 to 23. Avoid this as much as you can. Because we know that we do this because we're a little bit lazy. So we really don't want to explain all these 23 references in the details that would say, here you find that, and then in the second one you find that. That's a lot of work. So it's so much easier to make a statement like this. Okay, so with that, I will move on, and I will move on to review process. And this is going to be the last thing that I will explain about the publication business. Okay, so what happens when the journal comes to, when the submission comes to journal? And I can only tell what happens to journals that I've been involved with. And most of the stories that I'm about to explain to you are related to multi-body system dynamics. Okay, so first thing, you decided to do the submission. Submission are not coming to editor-in-chief directly, but instead it will go to editing office that is located in, I don't know, I think that our editing office is located in India. I think so. What they do in editing office is that they will conduct the plagiarism check. And if you get enough red color in the plagiarism check, that's it. That's end of the story. This is something sometimes really a little bit surprised, like, really? Why I'm getting the red flag from the plagiarism? The reason could be that you are publishing thesis work. Master thesis is a good example. All the master theses in LUT University are published online. And plagiarism tools, they can recognize that work and they will consider that as a published work. Remember, journals only wanted to publish the work that is not yet known information. And if it's already out there, it's already out there. So it's no longer new information, but it's something that is available in thesis work or whatever you can find it. But it's considered plagiarism, no matter who is an author of the paper that is available in the internet. And you get there is always a certain percentage of words that are used in other work, but if the percentage goes high, you will be automatically off. And that's it, end of the story. Okay, let's say that you are making a good work and you're not guilty of plagiarism. Then it goes from India, it comes back to editor's desk. And then I'm opening the manuscript, the first thing that I'm looking is how is that title? What is that title? What the title says. And it would be so nice to see that there is something that I'm familiar with, something that is in the field of multi-body system dynamics. Okay, let's say that is in a field of multi-body system dynamics. Next thing that I do is that I will go and check the reference list, because these are my potential candidates to carry out the review process. I'm looking, okay, you are citing the work number of times that is made by one of the famous authors in the field. So he must be the one that really knows this subject matter. So I'm going to write his name down already and check if he's available. Then I'm seeing, okay, there's another guy that you're citing in your work. So maybe he's another good candidate. So I'm making a list of possible reviewers based on the reference list. Then I'm looking a little bit about the content and keywords, combination of keywords and content. This combination. And then I will open the database called Scopus. I'm sure you know the database. And I'm typing these keywords to Scopus. It could be, okay, it could be like nonlinear vehicle model. It's a nonlinear multi-body model of passenger car. Okay, so I'm typing vehicle modeling multi-body in this database, that is Scopus database. And then I'm checking who are the authors in the field. And see, okay, there are some authors that is already in your reference list, but some that are not in the reference list, but based on their prior publication history, obviously they are very much familiar with this particular field. So I'm making a list. Then I have a list of, say, 6 names here, and I'm typing their names to this editorial office kind of tool box that we're using, and I'm checking who out of these 6 reviewers is available at this time. So I'm looking if there is already conducting the review work for the journal, and if not, then I might select this person. And that's how the selection of the reviewers actually goes. Any comments, any questions in that regard? I guess not. Okay, so review. Now, you need to be fairly good to make your way to, the first thing is, of course, you need to make your way through the plagiarism tool. And there is quite a bit of challenge to make your way away from the editor's desk. And I'm saying here that the 60% is rejected from the editor's desk. Maybe not that much, but it's just to give you like a number that it's like a heads up number. So it is a lot that it is rejected from the editor's desk. And that's simply because they don't fit the scopus of the journal. Then there's something else that we need to discuss. And something else that I have noticed as an author is that sometimes when there is a work that the quality-wise is not, okay, let's make it clear, it's not great. Let's put it this way. And it goes to high-quality journal, and then there's a response immediately back which says out of the scope. And we know that for a fact it's not out of the scope, so it's okay. So it fits well to this particular journal, but they still reject it because out of. Why is that? Well, that's simply because the editor is checking it and is concluding that the quality is not very good. So I need to reject that. I don't want to bother my reviewers with this low quality work, so I just wanted to reject it. Most of the journals, they're offering the kind of like easy solution out of that. And the easy solution is to say, it seems to be out of the scope, where actual reason is low quality. And that's what makes your life a little bit difficult, because, this is not really the case in multi-body system dynamics, but I see that happens in other zonals. So once it comes rejected from the editor says, and they say out of the scope, it may be out of the scope. It could be the true reason, but it could be also low quality. And you don't know what makes it low quality because you have no feedback. So that's the one thing that is good to keep in mind. And that's why it makes sense to check and double check that it fits the scopus of the zonal. And once it really fits that, make sure that the first impression is something that the editor is not going crazy in the first second that he opens the paper, but it sees that there's a potential, and put that in the review process. Okay. Here too, this was a question that we discussed a little while ago. So literature review is important, and it reflects how well you know the subject matter. So make sure you do that in a proper way, and make sure that all the important papers in your field are cited, because you need to build your case top of the existing information. And that happens easily when you're actually using the existing information. Okay, this is what I mentioned too. So review statements are always, which this says usually, I would say always focusing on issues. So they don't really say, okay, what a great piece of work. No, they don't. They're always pinpointing that there is a room for improvements. And there's always room for improvements. There is no such work in this planet where there's no room for improvements. You can always improve your work. And reviewers are saying the ways you can improve your work. That's something that you have to keep in mind, that don't get upset once you get the statement. So sometimes people are like, oh my God, this is a personal insult against me. No, it's nothing personal. It's no personal business here. It's just the work that is reviewed, nothing else. And I know that it hurts. It even physically hurts to get this extremely critical review statement. And it raises your blood pressure, and it makes you feel angry, and you want to throw things around. And that's kind of natural. And I think that my advice to you how to deal with this review statement is that read it in the same day you get it. Do nothing in the same day. Think about it. Sleep one night, get back to that next day. And then you finally start saying, actually, yeah, that's true. So this reviewer have a point. And think about, they always have a point. Because what you need to do next is that you have to put together a rebuttal letter, which says that, okay, this is how I'm addressing each one of the comments. And this is where the attitude really matters, because as soon as you start to take an attitude that, okay, this is it, I'm unwilling to change my work because it's such beautiful work, is take it or leave it. It's leave it. They don't want to publish it, because if you demonstrate in the attitude that you're unwilling to fix it, no, they don't want to see it. I don't think that there's no, famous famous authors that can have that kind of attitude. So you have to be kind of, let's just put it this way, that be humble and avoid the up-nose attitude. And up-nose attitude is that I figured out everything a while ago. I am not going to change the way I am because I'm perfect already. I don't think that that's the case. Learn from the review statement, but don't take it personally. So it's a balancing between take it seriously, but don't personally. Okay. All right, then, okay, so you get the review statement, then you read it, you go crazy, you yelling your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, your kids, you're acting like crazy person, and you sleep overnight. The next day you're looking at the game and say, yeah, this is actually makes sense. It's a good statement. If I would be the reviewer, I would probably say something similar than this one. Okay, then you're processing the work a bit more longer. Finally, when you're ready, when you're mature enough, you start improving your manuscript. And then what you need to put together is a rebuttal letter. Rebuttal letter is a letter which explains summary about the modification made. And the rebuttal letter, or the good practice for a rebuttal letter, is that you first of all making a coverage letter. I would say that, okay, I appreciate these comments very much, which you maybe not in real life, but still you have to say it that way. And then you're saying point by point, how is the way that you modify the manuscript? This is extremely, extremely important, because if you have a strong, well-prepared rebuttal, this is what it becomes to be difficult to reject afterwards, because you're addressing all the criticism raised. And you say, okay, I address this and this comment by modifying my manuscript this and this way. And if you're able to do so, then you will get accepted. But if you say, well, this review is bullshit, it's the reviewer don't know the business. Okay, you're stepping into very, very thin eyes, because reviewer don't know the business. So usually it's an editor that select the reviewer or assistant editor. They know the business, they know the reviewers, and they usually trust reviewers. And if they say take somebody's side, it's not going to be yours, but reviewers. Okay, so let's take a look. How are these rebuttal letters? How they look like? Okay, what is this? Oh, okay, that's because what I need to do is that I need to close my sharing for a little while. I need to open these documents to you another way, because I would like to show a few examples. How are these review statements? Let me see. How can I find it? May not be that easy. Here's the first one. Okay, so let me try to share this screen with you. Okay, I think that is okay. This one. So you see the PDF document?
Yes, the response to reviewers' comments file. I see.
Correct. So this is an example. Okay, so look at this. There's a coverage letter. I mean, the cover page, which says that, okay, we thank both reviewers for their constructive criticism and comments, which have pointed out the issues needing attention to improve the quality of our manuscript. Of course, you may not think this way. You may think like, oh my God, this is so painful and I hate these people so much. But of course, the name of the game is that you need to be polite. And you can use something like this to show that, okay, here I am, willing to improve my work. Let me explain in next, how did I improve my work? Okay, and then comes this very, very important point. Then you don't need to look at the detail, but there are comments. The comment number one. There's a comment, and then you say, how is that? Things are modified. This is very, very important that you say authors agree the reviewers, and hence the statement have been modified to. This is how you're addressing how you're revising the manuscript, and each one of the items are made in a similar way. So all comments are addressed. You cannot ignore a comment. You just cannot do that, because there could be a minor thing, but minor thing may be something that this particular reviewer is very much into that statement and wanted to see how is that you're taking the statement, and how is that, particularly how is that you are modifying your manuscript based on that. Okay, so this is just an example. I could show you another example. Another example is it's kind of funny, because this rebuttal letter is short, 7 pages only. I have one rebuttal letter that is a total of 32 pages. 32 pages. That's ridiculous. So it's longer than the real manuscript. That's where things are really, really well addressed. Every single comment is addressed in an extremely, extremely consistent way, such that there is no way to argue against. And it can be in the most extreme cases. Okay, so let me go back to. Oh, there was another statement as well. Maybe I could share that as well. After later. Okay. Author later. Hold on, I just need to find it out in my computer. Here. Okay, so I need to share this with you. Yeah, I think of this one. Okay, you see another PDF. I need to make it this bit bigger because now, right now, how did it?
Author letter, yeah?
Yeah, author letter. Okay, this is another example about how the rebuttal is. Here, the same phrases. So we have now revised the manuscript according to review suggestions, so on and so forth. So we're presenting this very much. Okay, and then comes the the points and replies, and then it says there is a point, reply, how the manuscript is being modified because of this comment. This is the best way to make it happen. And the same thing, point, reply, how it is modified in the manuscript, not just to saying, okay, I have a good case, and that's enough. And then again, point, reply, how it is modified, how you can see this comment in the manuscript. I look at how lengthy is an explanation. Oof, is extremely lengthy. So then saying again and again. So point, reply, and that's it. But this is already 13 pages, so you think it is serious work. But if you would be reviewer and all the comments you raised and all the criticism you raised is well addressed, you have no other choices than accept the paper, the next round. And this is another important thing because many journals, they have the policy that if the revised manuscript still get the statement which says major revision, it is considered as rejected paper. And that's simply because, the revised manuscript still needs serious amount of work. It's kind of giving an idea to editor that this work is not converging. So it's not going to be ready anytime soon. So maybe it's just better to close the case, and the easiest way to close the case is by rejecting the manuscript. Okay, so that's about it. So that's all that I have in terms of publication business. Let me share this one more time, this presentation with you. And this is it. So avoid up-nose attitude. Up-nose meaning like, yeah, I'm so good that I know I need no help. I need no comments because I'm so good. Okay, that's about it. So we discussed about the introduction. We discussed a little bit about the nature of academic business. We look quite a bit about how to prepare a manuscript, and we look a little bit about the review process. Now you can ask, and we can share some ideas, some comments, and I want to hear what you think about this, because I have no more material in this subject matter. But anything else you would like to hear, or anything else you would like to discuss with me?
Excuse me, I haven't clearly understand for what author of the last letter use the italic schrift.
Okay. So that was just that, italic was used to say this is the way that the new manuscript reads. this is the way that the new manuscript is put it in a writing. So it's highlighting changes made in manuscript. And sometimes it could be the way that it could be constructed is that you modify something in a certain section of the paper, but then you're explaining, okay, there is quite a bit of changes, and you highlighting the larger part of the paper in your rebuttal letter. But basically it reflects the way of what are the added material to manuscript and the way that the manuscript being changed.
So it for new added material and new manuscript. So,
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
May I give some comments?
Sure,
shortly, because hear your lesson, hear your lecture, and I suppose that for Russians it's the most problem to write short sentences because of our native language, and of course it's a problem for English language when we try to write something in one paragraph or something else. So thank you for that comment. Students be concentrate on that. But better to write two simple sentences than one complex sentence.
Or maybe 5 short sentences. And
yes, because I remember my first paper and it was awful.
So 2 long sentences.
Yes, a lot of long sentences and also a very big paper on 32 pages or something else. So it was very big.
So 32 pages. So so it was more than one story in one paper.
Yes, it was one story, but from different sides, something like that. But of course, better to write short papers. It's better for you. It is fast to print it, and of course, it's easier to editors to understand it. But try to use my experience, students. Okay, thank you very much.
Very good. Anything else?
Alexander, do you have any question or not?
Alexander is here today. Oh, I was not aware of that. So
I just want to ask about which part of the entire paper is needed to taken for literature review. So it's maybe a half of all entire paper or less. So, because it's not understandable for me.
Okay, so so it was again about the literature review. So you should actually use it. Maybe I wasn't clear enough about that. You know, usually you should use a literature and references almost all the sections in your work. You should use it in particular in introduction. In introduction, you should explain what is the most significant prior knowledge in this subject matter. That's how you use the references and literature in your introduction section. Then in the method section, most of the methods are not invented by you. And even if they are invented by you, you're still using something that is based on other people's work. And in method section, you should make a citation to other people's work and say, okay, this is the way you can say, write this type of the equation of motion, and it's already introduced first time in this paper. You should use a literature in method section as well. Then in numerical result section, if you have one, you should use references to kind of demonstrate that the results make sense. And the easiest way to use it is to use literature as a verification or an evidence that other people got the similar kind of results, and this is how you should use the references in the method section. Conclusion, not necessary. I don't think that you need to use a references in conclusion, but you should use a literature pretty much during the course of the paper, almost all the sections except the conclusion section of the paper. But the literature review is particularly needed in introduction. It's simply needed in introduction because I see quite a bit of papers that people are jumping, that they can explain. They have one paragraph about what is the meaning of the work, and then they will go to objective. That's not a good policy because there's always some prior knowledge about that particular field. And you are not just making a thorough literature review if you are not able to find it. So is that the proper answer to your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, good. All right, what else? Do we have any other comments? Okay, what about the master level students? When you're preparing your thesis work, did you get some ideas how you can put things in writing? This, by the way, is valid in reports as well. So reports as well should kind of follow the same procedure and same structure than any other publication. So do you feel that this, so do you have any comments or any questions in this regard? So I guess not. Okay, so so Roman, what do you say? So now is so we have a little less than half an hour for opening a new topic. So should we open a new topic? So what is that you expecting me to do?
Well, I suppose it is better to start new topic on next session, if you don't mind.
Okay. Sure, that's
because
fine.
It's really if it 2 hours, it means usually 2 academic hours, so 45 minutes and 45 minutes. And yes, but of course, if we not finished this topic yet, we will continue, but we already finished. So
okay, so the last not Tuesday, but Thursday, I made a mistake because I wasn't sure if it is 2 academic hours, which is a 45 minutes 2 times, right?
Yes, but
so that's an hour and a half because the last.
For me, it was okay because your lecture very interesting.
Okay, so what will happen on next Thursday? I will make sure that I'm not going to go further than hour and a half. So
yes, but if it will be 1 hour and 45 minutes, it also will be okay.
Okay, but last time, because I was torturing you longer than I was expecting to do, maybe I can give you some mercy this time. I'll let you go a bit earlier. Would you be my friend in that case?
Of course. Okay, students will think about it.
But if you have any other questions or comments, or if you want to show your manuscript to me, I'm very happy to take a look, and I can give my honest opinion about your manuscript. But of course, I understand that you don't have it right now, so you need a little bit of time to think about this offer and see if you have anything that you can email it to me. But you do have my email address. I'm always using my LUT email address, so please use that. So I don't think that I have an email account in your university. I don't think so. At least I'm not using one. So please use my LUT account so I can take a look. How is my LUT account? Well, that's my last name. Oh, this writing is so difficult with this. Let me try to take this off. So that's my last name at LUT.fi. MIKKOLA. Maybe I need to put it here. MIKKOLA at LUT.fi. that's the way you can contact me.
But now you are using Aki.Mikola.
That same thing, because I'm using both. So
Okay.
you can put my first name on it. You can put aki.mikola@lut.fi. But the both, okay, maybe it would be safer to use my full name because I kind of have an impression that even if you use my last name, it still comes to me. But if you want to be safe, use my first name, last name, lut.fi. Okay. So then,
okay, thank you very much.
What will happen next week is that I'm going to use a total of 6 academic hours. So it's 45 minutes 6 times, and I will explain you what is the deal with the computational dynamics.
Yes.
That's going to be, I think I need to cut the corners a little bit, but I think I'm able to do it for you. So you will have a good understanding about what kind of methods we're using in LUT University.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so maybe we can call for the day. So you guys take it easy and see you on Thursday again.
Thank you very much, Professor Mikola. See you on next week.
See you on Thursday then.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye now.
May we stop the recording, I think?
Yeah, sure. We can stop